was 1990 when my dad bought my mom her first and only brand new car. A Honda Civic, 4-door, manual transmission, beautiful blue XL. Well, this car went on to be legendary in the DeVore family. And I remember 2 specific memories about this car. The first was my dad's famous Home Depot runs, the Man Store. We would go there, but on the way home, he always swung by the 76 gas station. And that was because my dad really loved their 40-ounce Big Gulp Mountain Dews. He'd go in and get that fountain drink, and he would get back to the car, and remember, the Honda Civic was a manual transmission. He had to use his hand to shift the gears. Well, whoever, whether it was Jimmy or myself, my older brother, whoever sat in the front seat with my dad, they got to shift while my dad held his Big Gulp and steered with the other hand. So all the way home from the 76 gas station, every time he'd push in the clutch with his foot, we'd shift it into first gear, we'd shift it into second gear, and that was the pinnacle of adventure at that day and age. The second adventure that I remember from this Honda Civic was what we called puddle blasting. In the spring, about February, March, when the rain would pour down in the Antelope Valley, my dad would put us kids in the car and he would just drive around Lancaster. And we had a few spots that we would look for that would get flooded with water. I mean, tons of water, huge puddles. And he would take that Honda Civic and he would puddle blast through those flooded areas. I remember one time in particular, the water was so deep and my dad was going so fast that when he went into that puddle, the water shot up and made waves taller than the car, and it enveloped our car so you couldn't see anything until we came out the other side. Puddle blasting was one of our favorite adventures. But today's story is not about puddle blasting, and it's also not about Big Gulp Mountain Dew. It is about the day that our car, Old Blue, met Billy. Billy the... I'll let you find out who Billy was.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Now the year is 1998, and Mr. Josh is 4 years old. Around this time in my life, Mr. Josh and the DeVore family spent a lot of time in Lake Hughes at an old Christian camp that closed down called Canyon Meadows. Here, my dad would run the children's ministry events for special camps in the summertime, all the recreation and programming. We had so many adventures. Well, there was one tradition that we really enjoyed at camp, and it was called Polar Bear Swim. This was invented by Gary O'Neill, who was one of the camp leaders at that time. The way it worked is the Polar Bear Swim would take place at 6 a.m. in the morning before you would go down to the dining hall for breakfast. And let me tell you, it was cold. So, one day, my mom and dad drove Old Blue, remember our Honda Civic car, up to the pool. Parked it up there in the morning so that we could do the Polar Bear Swim as a family. And when we finished, we were so freezing cold and we just wanted to get down to the dining hall as fast as we could that we just left Old Blue right there up next to the pool. And then we went back down to main camp to eat breakfast. But what my mom forgot was that she left her famous fried chicken picnic lunch in the trunk of the car in the cooler. Well, we went down and ate breakfast and then started doing all kinds of recreation games throughout the day. But by the time my dad got back to the car later that afternoon, something horrible happened. You guys probably don't care what happened. Back to our story. Well, Dad was walking up the hill towards the pool, and in the distance while he was walking there, he saw Mom's cooler and all of her Pampered Chef Tupperware flung and shredded all over around the car. So he started to pick up the pace and move faster, but in the distance he could hear a sound. It sounded like huge footsteps, moving quickly, and every step seemed to shake the ground. And as he got closer to the car, he realized in the distance, right before it tucked away into the woods behind the pool, there was a wall of fur. And there was no mistaking what this wall of fur was before it disappeared into the woods. This wall of fur was Billy. Billy the bear. Billy the bear had introduced himself to Old Blue, our Honda Civic. And he did it in such a way that wasn't so polite or thoughtful. He went to the trunk of the car and reached his greasy little fingers underneath the lip and tore it open and shattered the hinges. And then he proceeded to take Mom's wonderful blue cooler out, tear the lid off, shred her Pampered Chef Tupperware, and gobble up every last bit of her famous chicken lunch. Dad cleaned up everything the best he could, drove back to main camp to bear the sad news, and we were all heartbroken to find that Mom's chicken had been taken by Billy the bear. And while that was a big deal to us, my dad was a little bit more concerned about the only brand new car he had ever purchased. And that's because for the next 5 years, my dad stretched a bungee cord over the back of that Honda Civic, and that is how he secured the lock. Never once did he consider going back to the dealership and repairing the lock. No. Bungee cords were a much better option. And I remember every time we got up to about 55 miles per hour, that bungee cord would rattle in such a soothing way, it would put you right to sleep when you were on a long drive. And that is the story of the bungee cord and Billy the bear.